The ancient pickup truck, a testament to countless hunting seasons, groaned its way deeper into the Monongahela National Forest. Inside, the air hummed with a mix of anticipation and the familiar scent of damp earth and pine needles. Caleb Dawson, 40, a former Marine whose stoicism was as ingrained as the lines on his weathered face, gripped the steering wheel. His eyes, sharp and accustomed to the wilderness, scanned the dense Appalachian tree line. He was leading this expedition into the hollow, a remote valley whispered about by locals, a place he'd deliberately ignored their warnings about. Almost there. Avery, Caleb grunted, his voice a low rumble. This is where the big boar hide out. Beside him, Avery Brooks, 25, a college student from Morgantown, practically vibrated with excitement. Her hands clutched a worn leather-bound notebook, her eyes alight with academic fervor. I can't believe we're actually going into the hollow. This is incredible for my folklore thesis. All those stories about the Hollow Man. In the back, Troy Bennett, 38, Caleb's hunting buddy and a jovial truck driver from Beckley, let out a hearty laugh. The Hollow Man? Come on, Avery, that's just campfire tales for city folk. We're here for wild boar, not ghosts. He slapped his knee, clearly enjoying his own dismissiveness. Maya Torres, 27, Avery's girlfriend and a barista from Pittsburgh, sat quietly, her usual adventurous spirit tempered by a growing unease. She was cautious, a stark contrast to Avery's academic enthusiasm. She leaned forward, peering out the window. It's really quiet, isn't it? She observed, her brow furrowed. No birds, no insects. It's almost oppressive. Caleb just shrugged. Deep woods, Maya, not always a symphony out here. But even he felt a subtle shift in the air, a stillness that was indeed unnatural. They set up camp in a small clearing, the towering, skeletal trees of early November casting long, eerie shadows. Despite Caleb's outward calm, a prickle of discomfort had begun to settle over the group. The silence Maya had noticed was more profound here, a heavy blanket that seemed to absorb all sound. Blank. Blank. The first day of hunting was unsuccessful, though they found something far more disturbing than a missed shot. Caleb, leading the way, suddenly froze. Lying in a patch of flattened leaves was a wild boar, massive and dark, but its body was mangled, torn open, and its eyes were gouged out, leaving empty, black sockets that stared up at the indifferent sky. Bear, Caleb declared, his voice firm, though a tremor of uncertainty ran through him. Big one, by the looks of it. But Avery, already kneeling, her hands sifting through the damp earth, disagreed. No, Caleb, look at these. She pointed to a series of tracks embedded in the soft ground around the boar. They were long, narrow, and ended in sharp, almost impossibly thin imprints, like elongated claws. These don't match any bear, or any animal I've ever seen. She pulled out her camera, snapping photos of the disturbing scene. Troy, usually quick with a joke, was silent, his jovial demeanor replaced by a look of profound unease. Maya hugged herself, her eyes darting nervously into the surrounding trees. The silence of the hollow seemed to press in on them, heavier than before. That night, the campfire, despite Caleb's diligent feeding of fresh wood, seemed to dim, casting only weak, flickering light. A new sound began to permeate the oppressive quiet, heavy, deliberate footsteps, circling their camp, just beyond the reach of the firelight. What was that? Troy whispered, his face pale in the faint glow. Probably just a deer, Caleb said, trying to sound reassuring, but his hand was already on his rifle. The footsteps continued, slow and methodical, crunching on fallen leaves, getting closer, then receding, then closer again. Troy couldn't take it anymore. With a wild cry, he raised his rifle and fired a shot into the darkness, the roar echoing through the silent valley. The footsteps stopped. The silence that followed was even more terrifying than the sound. There was nothing there, absolutely nothing. The next morning, the chilling discoveries continued. Caleb pulled out his GPS, only to find the screen blank, completely dead despite being fully charged. Then, when he unfolded his topographical map, a sharp gasp escaped his lips. It was inexplicably torn right through the center, a jagged rip that seemed to mock their predicament. This is insane, Caleb muttered, frustration warring with a growing sense of dread. Just then, Maya let out a choked cry, her hand flying to her mouth. Her eyes were wide, fixed on something deep within the tree line. Look, she whispered, her voice barely audible. They followed her gaze, standing amongst the shadowed trees, partially obscured by the morning mist, was a figure. It was tall, impossibly emaciated, its limbs unnaturally long, stretching like skeletal branches. It stood perfectly still, watching them. It was clearly not human. Caleb instinctively raised his rifle. But the figure didn't move. It simply stood there, observing them with an unnerving stillness. A cold, suffocating dread settled over the camp. Blank. Panic began to set in. "We have to go," Maya urged, her voice trembling. Now. They packed their gear with frantic speed, the figure still watching them from the trees. A silent, gaunt sentinel, as they tried to retrace their steps back out of the valley. They found their path blocked. Massive trees, fallen as if by an unseen hand, lay strewn across the narrow trail, forming an impenetrable barrier where none had been before. "This isn't possible," Caleb said, staring at the freshly fallen giants. "These weren't here yesterday." As they struggled to find an alternate route, a sudden, guttural howl ripped through the air, sending shivers down their spines. Without thinking, they scattered, a primal instinct to flee overpowering any sense of group cohesion. Hours later, after frantic searching and desperate calls, they found Troy. He was huddled in a shallow hollow, his eyes wide and vacant, staring at nothing. He was catatonic, muttering incoherently. "Eyes in the dark, so many eyes," he whispered, over and over, his voice a thin, reedy sound, utterly devoid of his former joviality. Avery, her face pale, knelt beside him. Her gaze fell upon a small, crumbling entrance to a cave nearby. Driven by a desperate hope, she crawled inside. Deep within the damp, earthy darkness, she found it, an old, leather-bound journal, its pages brittle with age. She carefully opened it, and as she read, a horrifying truth began to unfold. The journal belonged to an old prospector, detailing the history of the Hollow Man, a creature of ancient evil that fed on fear. It described a ritual, a way to appease the entity by offering a sacrifice, not of blood, but of something personal, a token of deep fear or desire. Avery stumbled out of the cave, clutching the journal. "Caleb," she breathed, her voice hoarse with discovery and dread. "I found something, an old journal. It talks about the Hollow Man, and a ritual to appease it. It says it feeds on fear." Caleb, however, refused to believe. His stoicism had turned into stubborn denial. "Appease it? Avery, that's just old superstitions. We need to keep moving. Find a way out of here." He pulled Troy, still muttering, to his feet, trying to force a path through the increasingly dense undergrowth. But the forest around them seemed to conspire against them. The air grew colder, thick with a palpable dread. The shadows deepened prematurely, even though it was still afternoon. The whispers, barely perceptible before, now seemed to slither through the trees. A constant, chilling murmur. Then, Maya vanished. One moment she was beside Avery, helping her navigate the treacherous terrain. The next she was gone. Only her jacket remained, snagged on a low branch, stained with fresh, dark blood. A cold, piercing scream tore from Avery's throat. Caleb whirled around, his face a mask of horror. "Maya," he roared, but there was no answer. Only the deepening silence of the hollow. Avery and Caleb were alone. The air dropped several degrees, and a skeletal figure, impossibly tall and gaunt, coalesced before them. Its eyes, deep-set and hollow, glowed with an internal, malevolent light, like burning embers in the darkness. It was the Hollow Man. Avery, remembering the journal, fumbled for the small, silver necklace she always wore. A gift from her grandmother. "No," she whispered, her voice trembling, but infused with a desperate hope. "No, you can have this. This is my most treasured possession. This is my sacrifice." She held it out, her hand shaking. The Hollow Man tilted its head, its glowing eyes fixed on her. Then, a low, guttural growl emanated from its skeletal throat. A sound of pure hunger, echoing through the valley. It wanted flesh, not trinkets. The ritual had failed. "Run, Avery," Caleb roared, his stoicism finally breaking into primal defiance. He lunged forward, not at the creature, but at the ground, grabbing a thick, fallen branch. With a guttural cry, he swung it, a desperate, futile attempt to buy Avery time. The Hollow Man moved with impossible speed. Its long, clawed hand snatched Caleb, silencing his cry. Avery watched, horrified, as Caleb's form was dragged into the deepening shadows. his struggling figure swallowed by the unholy glow of the creature's eyes. Avery turned and ran, powered by a raw, unadulterated terror she hadn't known she possessed. She ran until her lungs burned, until the glowing eyes of the hollow man were seared into her mind. A permanent, terrifying imprint. She didn't stop until the first pale light of dawn broke through the oppressive darkness of the trees, signaling her escape, but the creature's glowing eyes, she knew, would haunt her forever. Blank, blank. Avery returned to Morgantown, but the woman who had left was gone. Her research, once her passion, now felt like a curse. She gathered all her notes, all her recordings, and the brittle, horrifying journal. With trembling hands, she lit a match, watching as the pages curled and blackened, the words of the hollow man's rituals turning to ash. She couldn't face the truth contained within them. The locals whispered when she walked by, their eyes filled with a mixture of pity and fear. They said she was cursed, that she had brought something back from the hollow. And at night, she would wake up, drenched in sweat, a chill running through her very bones. Outside her window, in the impenetrable darkness, she would see them, two glowing, malevolent eyes, watching her. If you find the story interesting, please like and share this video and leave a comment with your opinion. Don't forget to subscribe to Sweet Revenge and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any new videos.